It's a great pleasure to be back here again presenting to give you an update on SolGold. We are listed on the London Stock Exchange and the Toronto Stock Exchange, and we are an emerging copper gold major. Already we have one tier one world-class discovery at Cascabel, and I think we're going to have a whole pipeline of projects, and I'll show you some of those today. Standard disclaimer there. So we have a major footprint in Ecuador. We have 3,200 square kilometres. We're exploring very aggressively. We have 84 geologists on the ground, half of those at Cascabel, half in the rest of the projects. Ecuador is so underexplored that we're making very rapid progress. Already we think we've found 11 high priority targets that all have the potential to be world-class discoveries. Some of these projects, if you sit on an outcrop, they look better than the discovery outcrop at Alpala did. So looking very positive. We're very endorsed and committed to our community, the Ecuadorian government and our stakeholders. And we're lucky to be working in a very positive mining jurisdiction in Ecuador, which is booming at the moment. Cascabel project is the most advanced. We own 85% of the project through ENSA. We've been drilling all year with 12 rigs. We're currently up to about 150,000 metres of drilling. Our maiden resource estimate, which came out in January this year, showed 1.08 billion tonnes at 0.68% copper equivalent. That contained about 5 million tonnes of copper and about 12 million ounces of gold. Our target for the next resource upgrade, which will come at the end of this year, is to double that. We have a PEA underway that will come out in January. We're targeting the high-grade core. Cascabel contains a very high-grade core. Within our maiden resource estimate, there was 220 million tonnes at about 1.45%. So that's the stuff we're chasing. This will be a block cave development, and I think that's a good thing for the low environmental footprint, the cheap cost of mining, cheap cost of milling, and it's going to work well. We're well funded. We have Newcrest as a major shareholder. They own about 14.5% of us, although they don't control us, and that's been shown recently. We have BHP has just entered our share register as well, purchasing 6%. Our strategy at the moment is to go for gold, which is why I'm presenting here in the gold conference, the gold section. We have some of our new discoveries are epithermals, and they're very rich, and we think to complement our world-class porphyry, a nice epithermal project would go a long way. So we commenced life in the Solomon Islands over there and in Queensland, and we've had some technical success in the Solomons. We found some porphyries, but they weren't high grade enough, so we decided to move to the Andes, to the place, the home of the giants, where nearly half the world's copper production comes from. We saw a space over Ecuador where there was no mines and decided that looks like a good place to go and explore. We were initially attracted to Ecuador, particularly northern Ecuador, by the Carnegie Ridge, where you have a thick, buoyant oceanic slab subducting at a low angle. This causes uplift, fracturing of the rocks, emplacement of a lot of oxygen, which scavenges the iron, causing magnetite, making these things easy to find. If you take Ecuador, it's only 750 kilometres north to south, and place that over northern Chile, you can find some of the identical geology. There's the Eocene belt. There's also the Miocene porphyry belt and a Jurassic porphyry belt in Ecuador. But that's the sort of potential we think we've got. This segment of northern Chile is about a quarter of the world's copper. Ecuador, no mines. It's covered in jungle, and it's been politically difficult, but now it's booming. As you can see, there's lots of big giants, the biggest giants on the Eocene belt, Eocene, Oligocene, and also the Miocene belt. We would expect in the future to see some more big blobs in Ecuador, and we think we're well placed to find some of those. Our share register, as I said, Newcrest owned 14.5%. That's a non-blocking stake, which means if there were a change of a takeover offer or something like that, they have to vote with the board of SolGold. BHP recently come on and bought 6% from Guyana Goldfields. The other major shareholders there, DGR Global, that's a company held by Nick Mather, which is our CEO, Cornerstone, our joint venture partner in Cascabel, owns some of us, and we have BlackRock in there as well. Current market cap is about 550 million British pounds, or about 720 million US dollars. One of the biggest factors for our success is our highly supportive and highly invested board of directors. Nick Mather, he's the driving force behind us. He's had 9 companies taken over, delivering about 5.7 billion to shareholders. I think his 10th, if it happens, is going to be the biggest. Dr. Steve Garwin is a great asset. He's our technical advisor. He's a porphyry guru, gives a lot of training courses to all our staff in Ecuador and ourselves. I'm the country manager. Ben Whistler there, he's a great data collection geologist. We have a strong technical team. A recent addition there is Craig Jones. He's a Newcrest appointee. He's a block caving expert, so he's on the board of directors as well. He visited Cascabel recently, and I was very encouraged to hear his comments regarding the core, the tailing site, etc. Booming Ecuador. It's most of the questions I had to answer about Cascabel over the last few years were not about Cascabel. They were all about Ecuador. Now I can happily say Ecuador's booming. Its tax regime is in line with the rest of South America. It's recently scrapped its windfall tax, so it's very much booming. As you can see by all the companies that have come to Ecuador. This is what the concessions looked like in 2014. Today, it's much fuller. We have the influx of all these major companies. We have 72 projects in this group. So we started generating our regional projects in about 2015, anticipating that the cadastre would open one day. It finally opened in 2017, so we got a great head start on people. Nevertheless, we are surrounded by sharks. Here we are. Here's Cascabel, here's Codelco, here's Hancock Prospecting, here's Newcrest, BHP are down here. A very highly prospective place in the world and very underexplored. SolGold owns 85% of ENSA. Cornerstone owns the remaining 15%. That's only for the Cascabel project. All of our other projects, our 72 other projects, are 100% SolGold owned. So one of the best things about Cascabel is the logistical advantages. It's just about a 3.5-hour drive north of Quito. There's a main road going through it, kind of like the road out the front of this hotel. Very good road, incredible infrastructure in Ecuador for those of you that have never been there. These are all the things we don't have to build. We don't have to build a port, it's already done. We don't have to make a power station. There's one right next to us. We have very cheap electricity in Ecuador, from 5 to 8 cents a kilowatt hour. It's at an easy to work elevation. We don't need oxygen tanks. It's the highest point is about 2,000 metres within the Cascabel concession. The sealed highway I mentioned. Water is a big factor. There's abundant water all around us. We believe we can build our block cave here for less than the price that Escondida paid just for their desal plant. If this project was high and dry in the Chilean Andes, it might cost anywhere to 6 billion to build this mine. We think we can do it for under 3 billion, but all this will come out in the PEA. But these infrastructural advantages can't be underestimated. So we commenced in 2012, and the first thing we did was flew mag. We followed that up later with ground mag. So this is the airborne. We followed it later with ground mag. That showed the smoke, and then we covered it with geochem to find the fire. We've assayed about 4,000 soil samples, all for 48 elements. These are some of the 3 most useful data sets. Manganese is very useful in defining alteration zones. Moly is useful in defining porphyry centres, and we use a lot of ratios. Copper over zinc is one of them. Our maiden resource is just there at Alpala. Alpala Central and moving into Alpala North now, some down here in Alpala South. So we have drilled some holes up here at Aganaga. We've found a lower grade porphyry there, lower priority now. We got some hits over 10 metres or so of 1% stuff, but most of it was about 0.3% copper. So when you're drilling what we're drilling at Alpala, that was lower priority for us, so we moved back there. As we move north, we're finding more mineralisation up under here, and I have a feeling that we're going to find something very good as we go here. Porphyry mineralisation outcrops here at Trevino. We've hit it about 600 metres down below Trevino. We've hit primary bornite in equilibrium with magnetite, which is great to see. Most of the mineralisation we've found in Alpala has been in the phyllic or the inner propylitic. We haven't really found a porphyry, a potassic core yet until this hole. So I'm thinking that up here we might see a replica of what we see down here in central Alpala. Our drill hole list, this is my favourite slide because we have, if we take some of the 30 best drill holes on planet Earth in the history of porphyry exploration, we've got about 10 of them. We have 10 holes over a kilometre at over 1%. We found this deposit, we found this porphyry in hole 1 where we drilled about 300 metres at kind of 0.6. But in hole 5, we knew we had a mine. There's hole 5, 1.3 Ks at about 0.9. Within that, we had some very high grade stuff, which is why we knew we had a mine. We have stuff that goes 5% copper and 10 grams gold. You don't need 1 billion tonnes of that to make an underground mine work. So from hole 5 on, we knew we were onto something really special. There's our maiden resource estimate, 1.08 billion tonnes at 0.68% equivalent. I heard some people saying, oh, that's too low grade for an underground block cave. I don't know if they know how to read one of these tables, but if you cut it off here at 0.9, there we have 220 million tonnes at 1.45. We're aiming to double that as in our second resource. This was based on 53,000 metres of drilling. We're now up to 150,000 metres of drilling. Drilling costs are coming down as we move in more rigs. We're drilling with 12 rigs again at the moment. We dropped down to 11 here when we sent one of the bigger rigs off-site, and we've got an extra man portable on-site. These things are fantastic. Hydrocore, 5,000. We can drill that. We've drilled the deepest hole in the world with a man portable rig was broken here at 1,000 metres, and a drilling contractor, Lance Hubbard from Hubbard Perforations, he's broken his own record multiple times on this job. He's now drilled 2.2 Ks with a man portable rig. They're great because they're much lower environmental disturbance. It's just a 5 metre by 5 metre pad under the tree canopy, no big clearing, no roads necessary. That's kind of, there's a plan view looking down on Alpala. Our drill holes, we're doing multiple drill holes. We're using Devico, so you can see some of these things we're branching off with multiple daughters off single pilot holes. That should be black right there. But the 2017 January maiden resource estimate at 1.5% is shown there. There's the extensions, the predicted growth at 1.5% now. This is what I was talking about up under Trevino. That's in hole 64. If anyone wants to come and see some core out there today or tomorrow, I've got some core there. But we hit bornite and magnetite there. It could be many things. But given that there's lower grade stuff in the middle, I'm kind of thinking that this could be the centre and this could be the other half of it up there, thinking, hoping. That's what the bulk resource looks like. Our first 1 billion tonnes is shown there in black, and now here's the extensions in red. So it's growing with every drill hole, and it's still open in multiple directions. Looking in, here's a cross section through the middle of it. Once again, this is our 1.5% stuff, and we're filling in the gaps shown in red there. So it's becoming more robust with the more infill drill holes we do. We initially started targeting this at 150 metre spacing. We've cut that right down to about 75 metre spacing. We've drilled the hell out of it, as you can see. Here's, once again, in black, shows our maiden resource estimate, over 1.5%. Here's the growth in all directions, looking north, looking east, looking south, and looking west. And here's some of the beautiful core. This stuff, we've got kilometres of this stuff at Cascabel. Some of this, often as you go up in grade, the gold doubles. So generally, if you've got 0.6 copper, you have about 0.6 grams per tonne gold. Once you go up above over 1%, copper. Gold generally jumps up to 2 grams per tonne or so. So you can see the gold ratio jumping up in some of these examples. There are variations though. This is like a hypogene chalcocite stuff. This is 18% copper over this 2 metre interval and only a gram gold. So that's some sort of different episode. And we haven't fully unravelled the story here. There are high sulfidation overprints, but mercifully it's all low arsenic. The bornite is what we're targeting now. Most of the bornite we see is in the phyllic, so it's in equilibrium with pyrite. We do start to see it with magnetite deep in some holes there. And hole 64 is the one I just mentioned. This is 200 metres north of the Alpala deposit. So that's how we're going to mine it. The details will all come out in our PEA. We originally had a long decline in here. It's still shown on the plan. That's because it was drawn by a couple of exploration geologists who've never designed a block cave before. We've had engineers in now, and we think the best way in is we'll spiral down. We'll go straight into this high-grade stuff first, and we think we can get very rapid payback in 3 to 4 years. That's just Alpala. I said we'd found a porphyry here at Aganaga. That's the 0.3 cutoff, so we have found a porphyry there. We haven't drilled it deep, and there is some high-grade stuff there. So if this was all we had, we'd still be chasing that. As it is, though, we're rushing to get our resource upgrade out by the end of this year, so we moved all the rigs back here at Alpala. Doug Kerwin showed this same graph earlier today, which I like. It shows the lack of copper discoveries, and you can see even when we were throwing a lot of money at exploration, there was still no discoveries. Now exploration funds have dropped off again. So with the electrification of the world and electric vehicles and all the rest of it, I don't know what's going to happen to the copper price in the next few years, but I suspect it's going upwards. Here's the biggest copper projects at the moment. So you can probably read them there. Even with all these projects, fantastic projects like Ivanhoe's Kamoa stuff, we're predicting by about 2024 we're in deficit, and then the deficit's going to fall at a rapid rate, because unless we do something about finding some more copper mines. So where are the big ones now? Kamoa, of course, Cobre Panama, Tex deposit there, Quebrada, some in China. Ours sits about here at 5,000. Our exploration target, what's that? About number 6 in copper. If we can find an extra 3 million tonnes, we might get up to number 3 in copper. This is for greenfields projects, which will be developed in the next 10 years. In gold, we're already number 1 with our exploration target. If we don't get to that exploration target by the end of this year, we'll get there eventually. So Ecuador is booming, as I said. They're very pro-mining. The government have spoken about mining becoming the second pillar of the community, of the economy. That's Cascabel. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about some of our regional projects. I'm very excited about these because the more Cascabel advances, it gets out of my hands and into the hands of the engineers, which is a great thing, but discovery is what excites me and the exploration team. So we've got some fantastic projects which are great. Here north of Cascabel, we have some epithermal. This is another epithermal project at Porvenir. The Eocene belt kind of extends down here, and the Miocene kind of overlaps it. Jurimagua is just 60 kilometres south of us, a bit further south than that. It's Miocene, whereas we're Eocene. And it's here's the Jurassic belt. This is where Fruta del Norte is, and Mirador. All of these projects are ours, and they're held in 4 subsidiaries, which are 100% SolGold owned. Here's some of our favourite projects so far. This vein at Blanca, it goes up to 600 grams gold. Just grab samples, but a lot of samples over 10, 20 grams. The vein, we can see it extends about 10 kilometres, pinches and swells, and it's not outcropping over the whole 10 kilometres, but we can see some good potential there. Sometimes people say, oh, you need a starter pit to start. Well, the starter pit doesn't have to be in Cascabel. The starter pit can be 8 kilometres away across the river. It can be a rich epithermal. Or it can be 25 kilometres to the east to Rio Amarillo, where we have a huge lithocap. These breccias go up to 60 grams per tonne. They're on the edge of the lithocap. We're applying for drill permits for both of these, so we know very little about them so far. We do have some good porphyry targets. These are down in the Jurassic Belt. La Hueca, there's 6 porphyry centres there. A couple I think might be too deeply eroded. We won't know till we drill them, but a couple are well preserved, and we're right at the top of the system, kind of where we were at Alpala, so we have a drill permit applied for there as well. Cisne Loja is out in the Jurassic Belt, some excellent grades. We know little about it. We've been on the ground, you know, a little bit. We've got a team on the ground there at the moment following this stuff up. But when you can just walk up a creek and find this stuff outcropping, it's pretty exciting. Cisne Loja, that's another epithermal project down on the Miocene, kind of close to Loma Larga. And again, big lithocap, let's say, or silica cap. Just about every sample in that goes over 1 gram gold, and the best of it goes about 15 grams. We've got a drill permit in for that as well. Porvenir, it's also down on the Jurassic. We've found 2 porphyry centres there. A lot of copper. We're not quite sure. We don't see porphyry-style veining so much. A lot of magnetite, a lot of quartz, a lot of copper. It's still early days, but exciting project as well. And Timbara is another one. So one of the most important things, especially when you're operating in a new mining jurisdiction like Ecuador, and you can't underestimate it, is our community programs. If you can't get into these areas, you can't work in these areas, and you can't build a mine there. So we have just as strong a focus on these projects as we do on exploration. We currently employ about 450 people in Ecuador. 97% of those are Ecuadorian. We've got about 10% female, with about 30% of the geological staff now female. We do all sorts of projects. The latest one was a bakery in the community, and this is the only bakery within about, I don't know, 50 kilometres. So they're running a roaring trade. Environmental education, just teaching people what we're all on about. That's a big part of our strategy and our success. Also, the health, safety, and environment, very important to us. We have full baseline studies in place. You know, we contribute to local projects wherever we can. We have a nursery there where we've grown and given away over 500,000 trees, and they've gone into replanting, reforestation projects all around the region. So just a little bit about our joint venture with Cornerstone. Cornerstone hold 15% of ENSA. Okay, so at the end of when we go into production, at the end of feasibility, they have to contribute 15%. If they don't, their 15% drops down to a $4 million, a royalty which we can buy for $4 million. And there's a quick summary of everything I just said. I'm running out of time. We're here. I'd like to thank the Ecuadorian government, all the communities we work with, and our fantastic team. If you'd like to hear more, we have Carlos Diaz in our around the corner there in our core shed, and Adriana Valencia. They'll be able to help you out with any more questions.